Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the TNS Defiance and watched the stars. Outside her ship, dozens of other vessels moved in perfect formation. Half were human ships with their clean metal hulls and blue engine lights. The other half belonged to the Valorants. The Valorant ships looked different. They were darker with sharp edges that reminded Sarah of wolf teeth. Red lights glowed from their engines like angry eyes. But Sarah was not afraid of these ships. The Valorants were humanity's closest friends in the galaxy. "Commander," called Lieutenant Rodriguez from his station. "The Valorant fleet is ready for the training exercise." Sarah nodded. "Open a channel to Captain Thekmon." The main screen flickered to life. Captain Thekmon appeared on the display. He looked like a giant wolf that could walk on two legs. His fur was gray with black markings around his eyes. When he smiled, Sarah could see his sharp teeth. But his yellow eyes were warm and kind. "Greetings, Sarah Chen," Thekmon said in his deep voice. "My pack is ready to hunt alongside yours." Sarah smiled back. "Good to see you, old friend. Let's show these recruits how it's done." The training exercise began. Human and Valorant ships worked together like they had done it 1,000 times before. The human ships were fast and could change direction quickly. The Valorant ships were stronger and could take more damage. Together, they made a perfect team. Sarah remembered when she first met the Valorants 50 years ago. Back then, humans had just learned how to travel between stars. Most alien races looked down on humans as young and weak. But not the Valorants. The Valorants respected courage and honor above all else. When they met humans, they saw these same qualities. Humans were brave in battle and loyal to their friends. The Valorants liked that. Soon, the two species became close allies. They built colonies together. They shared technology and knowledge. Human engineers learned how to make ships stronger from Valorant designs. Valorant warriors learned human tactics that used speed and surprise. Both species became better because they worked together. But not everyone was happy about this friendship. Far away in the center of the galaxy, the Galactic Council watched and worried. The Council had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. 12 ancient alien races controlled everything. They decided who could trade with whom. They decided which planets could be colonized. They decided who lived and who died. The Council's power came from keeping other races separated. If alien species never worked together, they could never challenge the Council's rule. For 3,000 years, this plan had worked perfectly. Until now, the Human-Valorant alliance was different. It was not based on fear or control like the Council's relationships. It was based on friendship and respect. Other young alien races began to notice. Some started talking about forming their own alliances. This scared the Council. Council Speaker HFY floated in his crystal chamber high above Council Prime. His species, the Zephyrians, were made of living crystal. They could live for thousands of years and thought they were better than all other life forms. The humans and Valorants must be separated, HFY said to the other council members. His voice sounded like breaking glass. Their alliance threatens our authority. But they have done nothing wrong, said Councillor Mirta. Her species looked like tall, thin trees with many arms. They trade peacefully and follow all galactic laws. The law is what we say it is, HFY replied coldly. And I say their alliance is dangerous. Other species are starting to get ideas. Soon they will all want independence from our guidance. The council chamber fell silent. The 12 species had different shapes and sizes, but they all understood power. They had built their empire by crushing anyone who challenged them. They would not stop now. What do you propose? Asked Councillor Vrexton. His species looked like giant insects with multiple eyes. We make an example, HFY said. We show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the natural order. The Valorants are fewer in number than the humans. We eliminate them completely. The humans will learn their place. Some council members shifted uncomfortably. Even by their standards, genocide was extreme. But HFY continued, we will say the Valorants were planning a rebellion. We will say the humans corrupted them with dangerous ideas. The other species will believe us because they fear us, and humanity will be too afraid to seek revenge. The vote was close, but it passed. 8 species voted for the plan. 4 voted against it. But in the council, majority ruled. Plans were made in secret. A massive fleet was assembled from ships of all 12 council species. The target was chosen, Kepler's Honor, the main Valorant colony world. It was also home to many humans who lived and worked alongside their Valorant friends. Back on the TNS Defiance, Sarah finished the training exercise. The human and Valorant crews had performed perfectly. They moved like one mind controlling many bodies. Excellent work, everyone, Sarah announced over the ship's communication system. Shore leave is approved for all crew members. Many of the human crew members had Valorant friends on the nearby space station. They would spend their free time together, sharing stories and drinks. Some humans had even learned to speak the Valorant language. Some Valorants had human names as well as their birth names. Sarah walked to her private quarters. On her desk was a photo of her graduation from the military academy. Standing next to her was Thekmon. They had trained together, fought together, and saved each other's lives more times than she could count. The Valorants had a saying, "Blood of battle makes the strongest pack bonds." Sarah understood this. The humans and Valorants had bled together defending innocent people from pirates and raiders. They had built something precious together. As Sarah prepared for sleep, she looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Council was making plans that would change everything. But Sarah did not know this yet. She fell asleep thinking about peaceful times and good friends. In the morning, everything would begin to fall apart. The Council fleet was already moving through hyperspace toward Kepler's honor. Admiral Krishtar of the Valorant. Home fleet was preparing for what he thought would be a routine inspection visit. The humans on Kepler's honor were planning a festival to celebrate 50 years of friendship between their species. None of them knew that the Council had decided they must die. The galaxy was about to learn why you should never threaten something humans love. But first, the Council would learn why genocide always has a price, and why humans never forget their friends, even in death. The countdown to war had begun, though no one knew it yet. In a few days, the stars themselves would burn with human rage. The Galactic Council thought they were dealing with a young, weak species that would submit when faced with overwhelming force. They could not have been more wrong. The warning came too late. Admiral Kreshtar of the Valorant home fleet was drinking morning tea in his command center when the alarms started screaming. His aide, a young Valorant named Jorthak, rushed to his side. "Sir, we have massive contacts dropping out of hyperspace around Kepler's honor," Jorthak reported. His ears were flat against his head with worry. Kreshtar set down his teacup and walked to the main display screen. What he saw made his blood run cold. Hundreds of ships surrounded the planet. They were not just any ships. These were Council dreadnoughts, the largest and most powerful warships in the galaxy. "This must be a mistake," Kreshtar said. "Open a channel to the lead Council ship." The screen flickered and showed the bridge of a Council vessel. A Zephyrian commander appeared, his crystal body glowing with cold light. "I am Admiral Kreshtar of the Valorant home fleet," Kreshtar said formally. "We welcome the honored Council to our space. How may we serve you?" The Zephyrian commander did not answer immediately. Behind him, other Council officers prepared weapon systems. Kreshtar felt his stomach drop. "You are all under arrest for conspiracy against the Galactic Council," the Zephyrian finally said. "You have corrupted young species with dangerous ideas of independence. You will surrender immediately." Kreshtar's mind raced. This made no sense. The Valorants had always followed Council laws. They had never rebelled or caused trouble. "Honored Commander, there must be some confusion," Kreshtar said. "We have committed no crimes. We are loyal citizens of the galaxy. If there are charges against us, we request a formal hearing." "The time for hearings is over," the Zephyrian replied. "You will power down all weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with deadly force." On the planet below, 12 million Valorants lived their daily lives. They worked in factories and farms. Children played in schools. Families shared meals together. Many humans lived among them, their closest friends and allies. None of them knew they had minutes left to live. "Sir," Jorthak whispered, "our sensors show they are charging all weapon systems." Kreshtar felt ice in his veins. This was not an arrest. This was an execution. "All ships, this is Admiral Kreshtar," he broadcast to his fleet. "Raise shields and prepare for battle. Send immediate distress calls to Earth and all Valorant colonies. The Council means to destroy us." The Council fleet opened fire without warning. The first volley destroyed half the Valorant defense ships instantly. The remaining vessels fought back bravely, but they were outnumbered 10 to 1. The Council had brought enough firepower to level entire star systems. Captain Gordon of the Valorant ship Bloodclaw watched his pack brothers die around him. His ship was badly damaged, engines failing, weapons offline. But he still had communications. "This is Captain Gordon to any human ships in range," he transmitted. "The Council is massacring us. They came without warning. They gave us no chance to surrender. Tell the humans we died with honor. Tell them to avenge us." A Council missile struck the Bloodclaw's bridge. Gordon died, still transmitting his final message. Admiral Kreshtar's flagship was the last Valorant ship fighting. He stood on his burning bridge watching the Council fleet turn its weapons on the planet below. "No," he whispered. "They would not dare." But they did. The bombardment of Kepler's honor began with plasma cannons that could crack continents. The Council ships targeted not just military bases but cities full of civilians, schools where Valorant children learned to read, hospitals where the sick were treated, cultural centers where ancient Valorant traditions were preserved. The planet's shields lasted for 20 minutes. When they fell, the real horror began. Council bombers swept down from orbit, destroying everything that moved. They burned forests where Valorant families had picnicked for generations. They leveled the Great Library where Valorant history was kept. They targeted refugee camps where survivors tried to hide. In the human quarter of New Thornwood City, Dr. Elizabeth Hayes ran through burning streets carrying wounded Valorant children. She was a human doctor who had spent 20 years on Kepler's honor. These people were her neighbors, her patients, her friends. A Council fighter spotted her group and opened fire. Dr. Hayes threw herself over the Valorant children, using her body as a shield. The plasma blast killed her instantly, but the children lived for a few more minutes before another strike found them. All over the planet, similar scenes played out. Humans and Valorants died together, protecting each other until the very end. The bonds forged over 50 years of friendship did not break, even in the face of death. The Council broadcast everything. They sent live feeds to every world in the galaxy, showing the destruction of Kepler's honor. The message was clear. This is what happens to those who challenge the Council's authority. But they made one critical mistake. They let some Valorants live, a few hundred survivors. Were taken prisoner and paraded before Council worlds as examples. They were beaten and humiliated, forced to confess to crimes they had never committed. The Council wanted other species to see what rebellion brought. The survivors included war leader Thekmon, Sarah Chen's closest friend. The Council kept him alive for special treatment. They wanted to break him publicly, to show that even the strongest Valorant could be made to beg. They did not break him. Even as they tortured him, Thekmon sang the old war songs of his people. He spoke of honor and friendship. He told his captors that humanity would come for them, and when they did, the galaxy would burn with righteous fury. "Humans do not abandon their pack," he said through broken teeth. "They will remember. They will come. And when they do, you will learn why it was a mistake to hurt their friends." The Council guards laughed at him. Humans were young and weak, they said. Humans would hide behind their borders and pretend nothing had happened. Humans would not risk war with the mighty Galactic Council. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. On Earth, the first reports of the massacre reached President Maria Santos at 3 a.m. She was woken by her security chief, General Morrison, who had tears in his eyes. "Madam President," Morrison said quietly, "Kepler's honor is gone. All of it, 12 million dead." The Council. They broadcast the whole thing. President Santos sat in silence for a long moment. Then she spoke in a voice like ice. "Call an emergency session of Parliament. Recall all human ships to Sol system immediately." "And Morrison?" "Yes, Madam President." "Send word to Admiral Chen. Tell her she just got promoted. Tell her she's going to need a much bigger fleet." The galaxy thought the massacre of Kepler's honor was the end of the human-Valorant alliance. They thought humanity would submit to Council authority, rather than face the same fate. They were about to learn that genocide only teaches one lesson. Some things are worth dying to avenge. And when humans go to war, they do not stop until their enemies are nothing but dust and memory. The funeral was broadcast across the galaxy. President Maria Santos stood at the podium in the Great Hall of the United Earth Assembly. Behind her, 12 million candles burned for the dead of Kepler's honor. Each flame represented a Valorant life lost to Council brutality. "Today we mourn our fallen friends," Santos said to the cameras. Her voice was steady, but her eyes burned with controlled rage. "The Valorants were our brothers and sisters. They died because they dared to call humanity their ally. The galaxy watched, expecting humanity to bow down. Many species sent messages of sympathy but also warnings. Do not anger the Council further, they said. Accept what happened and move on. The dead cannot be brought back. We have heard the calls for peace, Santos continued. We have been told to accept this tragedy and continue as before. We have been advised to submit to Council wisdom and abandon thoughts of revenge. She paused, looking directly into the camera. We hear you, and we have made our decision. The galaxy held its breath. Humanity will not seek war with the Galactic Council, Santos announced. We will close our borders and focus on our own affairs. We will not form new alliances or interfere in galactic politics. We will be the quiet, peaceful species the Council wants us to be. Across the galaxy, alien leaders breathed sighs of relief. The humans had seen sense. They would not risk their own extinction to avenge dead friends. The Council had won. They could not have been more wrong. What the galaxy saw as surrender was actually the beginning of the largest military mobilization in human history. The moment the broadcast ended, President Santos activated Code Omega, the highest level of war preparation. General Morrison, she said quietly, how long do we need? 18 months, Madam President, Morrison replied. Maybe 2 years if we want to be completely ready. You have 1 year, Santos said. After that, we go to war whether we're ready or not. The transformation of human space began immediately. Every civilian factory was converted to military production. Every shipyard started building warships. Every human colony became a training ground for the largest army their species had ever assembled. But it all happened in secret. To the outside galaxy, humanity appeared to be withdrawing from galactic affairs. Human merchants stopped visiting alien worlds. Human diplomats recalled themselves from council stations. Human colonies went quiet, their communications reduced to basic necessity. The council congratulated itself on a job well done. The humans had learned their lesson. Other young species took note and became more submissive. The natural order was restored. They never suspected that human merchant ships were actually reconnaissance vessels, mapping every council world and fleet position. They never realized that human diplomats were actually saboteurs, placing hidden devices in key council installations. They never understood that human withdrawal was actually the calm before the storm. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the secret construction yards of Luna Base, watching humanity's new fleet take shape. The ships were unlike anything built before. They combined human innovation with Valorant combat philosophy, creating vessels designed for one purpose, total war. Show me the Valorant Honor Protocol, Chen ordered. Dr. James Harrison, head of Terran military research, activated a holographic display. The image showed tactical formations that looked like hunting pack movements. We studied 50 years of joint operations with the Valorants, Harrison explained. We learned how they fought, how they thought, how they coordinated attacks. The Honor Protocol takes all of that knowledge and adapts it for human crews. Chen watched simulated battles play out in the hologram. Human ships moved like Valorant wolf packs, using speed and coordination to overcome larger enemies. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. What about weapons? Chen asked. Harrison smiled grimly. Quantum disruption torpedoes. They ignore shields and armor, attacking the molecular structure of enemy ships. We also have adaptive AI systems that learn from each battle, becoming more effective against specific enemy types. And the special project? Harrison's expression grew serious. The Valorant memory banks are complete. We recovered all cultural data from Kepler's Honor before the bombardment. Their language, their songs, their combat techniques, their honor codes. Everything that made them who they were is preserved in our database. Chen nodded. This was important. The Valorants would live on through human memory. Their ways of war would guide humanity's vengeance. But building ships was only part of the preparation. Humanity's greatest advantage was not technology, but intelligence. Captain Maria Vasquez of the Intelligence Corps sat in a cantina on Council Prime, the capital world of the galactic government. To anyone watching, she was just another human trader trying to make a living after her government's withdrawal from galactic politics. In reality, she was mapping the entire Council defense network. Another drink, friend? Asked the Zephyrian bartender. Sure, Vasquez replied in broken Council standard, pretending to be less educated than she was. You seem smart. Maybe you know why so many council ships around here lately. The Zephyrian laughed. Security upgrade. After the Valorant incident, the Council wants to be ready for any other rebellious young species. Vasquez nodded stupidly while memorizing every detail the alien revealed. Council fleet positions, patrol schedules, defense plans. It all went into her mental files to be transmitted back to Earth later. Similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. Human agents posed as refugees, merchants, and diplomats while gathering intelligence. They mapped every Council military installation, identified key leaders, and most importantly, made contact with oppressed species throughout Council space. The galaxy had hundreds of races under Council rule. Most had their own grievances against their overlords. The Council maintained power through fear and division, never allowing different species to coordinate resistance. But humans specialized in building alliances. Agent David Kim met with Ralthan freedom fighters in the dark corners of mining worlds. The Ralthans looked like giant armored beetles, and they had been enslaved by the Council for 2 centuries. They remembered freedom and wanted it back. "You say the humans will help us when the time comes?" asked Ralthan leader Kliktar. "We will provide weapons and training," Kim promised. "When we move against the Council, you and dozens of other species will rise up at the same time. They cannot fight everyone at once." Similar promises were made to the oppressed races throughout Council space. The Methani, who looked like walking plants, had seen their worlds stripped of resources. The Jorvak, crystalline beings like the ruling Zephyrians but treated as inferior, yearned for equality. The Hexit, insectoid species used as disposable labor, dreamed of freedom. All of them agreed to join humanity's war of vengeance. Back on Earth, Admiral Chen reviewed the final preparations. The Terran Expeditionary Force was ready, 3,000 ships carrying the most advanced weapons humanity had ever created. Each vessel bore the name of a Valorant warrior who died at Kepler's honor. Chen's flagship was called Thekmon's Vengeance. "Admiral," reported her aide, Commander Jackson, "all human agents are in position. The rebellion networks are ready to activate on your signal. Allied species have confirmed their participation." Chen studied the tactical display showing Council space. Red dots marked enemy fleets and installations. Green dots showed rebel cells and human agents. Blue dots indicated allied species ready to rise up. The plan was audacious in its scope. Humanity would strike not just at Council military forces, but at the very foundation of their power. Simultaneous uprisings across dozens of worlds would shatter the Council's ability to coordinate defense. Human fleets would eliminate key installations, while Allied forces kept Council troops busy with rebellions. It was the largest military operation in galactic history, coordinated by a species the Council considered young and primitive. "Signal all ships," Chen ordered. "Operation Valorant Justice begins in 72 hours. As the human fleet prepared to move, Chen stood in the memorial hall of her flagship. Holographic images of Valorant warriors lined the walls, friends and allies who had died screaming as Council plasma burned their world. "We're coming," she whispered to their memories. "We kept our promise. The pack remembers it's fallen." The galaxy was about to learn that humans had inherited more than just Valorant combat techniques. They had also inherited the Valorant concept of honor, which demanded that the innocent dead be avenged and their killers face justice. The Council had thought genocide would end the human-Valorant alliance. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous, a species of humans who fought with the fury of wolves and the patience of apex predators. The hunt was about to begin. The attack began in silence. Across 17 Council worlds, human cyber warfare specialists activated programs they had spent months preparing. These were not ordinary computer viruses. They were digital weapons designed by humans who had learned Valorant honor hacking techniques before their friends died. On Council Prime, Defense Coordinator Vexhai was reviewing morning reports when every screen in his command center went black. Then slowly words appeared in burning red letters. "The pack remembers it's fallen." Similar messages appeared on military bases throughout Council space. Communication networks crashed. Defense grids went offline. Fleet coordination systems failed. In minutes, the most advanced civilization in the galaxy was reduced to isolated groups of confused soldiers trying to understand what was happening. "Sir," called a panicked technician, "we're locked out of everything. Weapons, shields, communications, it's all down." Vexhai felt ice in his veins. This was not random system failure. This was warfare conducted by masters of electronic combat. Then space itself began to ripple. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of Thekmon's vengeance and watched reality bend around her fleet. The quantum shadow technology had been adapted from Valorant hunting techniques, the way they could move unseen through forests, appearing only when ready to strike. 3,000 human warships materialized simultaneously throughout Council space. They emerged from dark space like ghost wolves, their hulls painted with Valorant honor marks and their weapons already charging. All ships, Chen broadcast, this is Operation Valorant Justice. Make them pay for every life they took. The space battle above Council Prime became legendary in its fury. Council dreadnoughts were massive ships, built to intimidate as much as to fight. They relied on overwhelming firepower and heavy armor to crush enemies. But they also relied on centralized command and coordination, systems that were now dead. The human fleet fought differently. They used Valorant pack hunting tactics with smaller groups of ships working together to surround and destroy larger enemies. When one human ship was damaged, 2 others would cover its retreat while a third moved in for the kill. The TNS Bloodclaw's Revenge, named for Captain Gordon's destroyed ship, led a group of destroyers against a Council battlecruiser. The enemy ship was 3 times larger and had more powerful weapons, but it fought alone while the humans fought as a pack. "Target their engine systems," ordered Captain Liu of the Bloodclaw's Revenge, hamstring the prey before going for the kill. Quantum torpedoes struck the battlecruiser's propulsion units, leaving it unable to maneuver. Then the human ship swarmed around it, firing from all angles until the mighty vessel broke apart. Similar scenes played out throughout the battle. Individual Council ships were powerful, but they had been designed to fight in formation with support from command ships. Without coordination, they were just large targets. Admiral Chen's flagship drove straight toward the Council command vessel, a massive dreadnought called Eternal Authority. Its weapons could level planets, but Chen did not flinch. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "All ships converge on the command ship. We end this quickly." The Eternal Authority was defended by dozens of escort vessels, but they were in chaos without communication systems. Human ships slipped between them like shadows, striking at weak points and vanishing before return fire could lock on. When Thekmon's vengeance reached the enemy flagship, Chen did something unprecedented. Instead of destroying it with long-range weapons, she ordered a boarding action. "Prepare assault teams," she announced. "We're going aboard." Her crew looked shocked. Boarding enemy vessels was incredibly dangerous, something done only in desperate situations. But Chen had learned from Valorant traditions. Some enemies deserve to face their victims personally. The boarding assault was swift and brutal. Human Marines, trained in Valorant close combat techniques, stormed through the Eternal Authority's corridors. They moved like hunting packs, covering each other and striking at weak points. Council Speaker HFY waited in his crystal command chamber, surrounded by his personal guards. He had ruled the galaxy for 800 years and had never faced a real challenge to his power. When Admiral Chen burst through his door, flanked by Marines in blood-splattered armor, he finally understood fear. "You cannot do this," HFY said, his crystal body flickering with nervous energy. "I am the Speaker of the Council. I am protected by galactic law." "Your law died with Kepler's honor," Chen replied coldly. "You wanted to make an example of genocide. Let me show you what humans do to genocidal monsters." But the battle above Council Prime was only part of the operation. Throughout Council space, oppressed species rose in rebellion. The human agents who had spent months building resistance networks now activated their plans. On the mining world of Kepler 7, the enslaved Ralthans received human weapons and training broadcasts. Kliktar led his people out of the mines and against their council overseers. "For 200 years we have bent our backs to their whips," he declared to his followers. "Today we stand straight again. Today we remember what freedom means." The Ralthan uprising was swift and merciless. Their armored shells could stop most small arms fire, and their natural digging abilities let them attack from unexpected directions. Council garrison troops used to dealing with passive slaves were overwhelmed. On the garden world of New Eden, the plant-like Methani had similar success. They used their ability to communicate through root networks to coordinate perfect ambushes. Council soldiers found themselves surrounded by enemies that seemed to spring from the very ground. The insectoid Hexit proved even more effective. Their hive mind coordination, combined with human tactical advice, let them strike at dozens of targets simultaneously. Council forces never knew where the next attack would come from. Most importantly, the crystalline Yorvak rebels sabotaged key Council installations from within. They had worked as technicians and engineers for decades, invisible to their Zephyrian masters who saw them as inferior cousins. When they turned their knowledge against the Council, the results were devastating. Power plants exploded. Spaceports were destroyed. Communication relays failed. In hours, the mighty Council infrastructure was reduced to smoking ruins. Admiral Chen's fleet methodically eliminated Council strongholds throughout the core systems. The human ships worked with clockwork precision, their crews singing Valorant war songs as they fought. But the most important battle was psychological. The Council's power had always been based on the belief that resistance was hopeless. For 3,000 years, they had crushed anyone who opposed them, proving that the natural order could not be changed. Now that order was crumbling in a single day of coordinated warfare. Young species throughout the galaxy watched the broadcasts in amazement. The mighty Council fleets were being destroyed by humans and their allies. Worlds that had been enslaved for centuries were breaking free. The impossible was happening before their eyes. On Council Prime, the final battle raged in the government district. Human Marines fought street by street toward the Council chambers, supported by Yorvak rebels who knew every secret passage and hidden door. Speaker HFY tried to rally his remaining forces, but his authority was broken. How could he claim divine right to rule when primitive humans were destroying his fleets? When Admiral Chen finally cornered him in the ruins of his crystal palace, HFY made one last attempt at negotiation. "You do not understand what you have done," he said desperately. "Without the Council, the galaxy will fall into chaos. Hundreds of species will go to war. Billions will die." Chen looked at him with cold eyes. "That's not my problem anymore. You should have thought about that before you murdered 12 million innocent people." "But we are civilized beings," HFY pleaded. "Surely we can reach an agreement. The humans can join the Council as equals. You can help us restore order." "There will be no Council," Chen replied. "Your empire ends here." The Battle of Council Prime lasted 72 hours. When it ended, the Galactic Council's 3,000-year reign was over. Their fleets were destroyed, their worlds liberated, their leaders dead or captured. The impossible had happened. A young species written off as weak and primitive had toppled the mightiest empire in galactic history. But Admiral Chen knew the real war was just beginning. Destroying the Council was one thing. Building something better would be much harder. As she stood in the ruins of the Council chambers surrounded by the symbols of fallen tyranny, she thought about Thekmon and all the Valorants who had died. They would never see the free galaxy their sacrifice had made possible, but their memory would guide humanity as they tried to build a better future for all species. The age of the Council was over. The age of freedom had begun. 6 months after the fall of Council Prime, Admiral Sarah Chen walked through the memorial garden aboard her new flagship. The ship was called Kepler's Honor Reborn, and it was the largest vessel humanity had ever built. The memorial garden was quiet and peaceful. Holographic statues of Valorant warriors lined the walkways, their images captured from the cultural database recovered before Kepler's honor burned. Each statue showed a different Valorant who had died in the massacre, from great war leaders to simple farmers who had never held weapons. Chen stopped before the statue of Thekmon, her closest friend. The hologram showed him as she remembered him, proud, strong, and loyal. His yellow eyes seemed to follow her as she placed fresh flowers at the base of his memorial. "We did it, old friend," she whispered. "The Council is gone. Your people are avenged." But victory had come at a price that was still being counted. The destruction of the Galactic Council had created a power vacuum that threatened to tear the galaxy apart. Without the Council's iron control, old grudges between species flared into open warfare. Trade routes collapsed. Entire systems fell into chaos. Some species tried to build their own empires from the ruins. The militant Kroger, who looked like walking crocodiles, invaded 3 neighboring systems in the first month after the Council's fall. The technologically advanced Nexari attempted to recreate the Council's control network with themselves as the new rulers. Other species simply collapsed into civil war. The Malthan Empire, which had been held together by fear of Council punishment, split into 17 feuding factions. Pirates and raiders flourished in the chaos, preying on undefended worlds. The galaxy was free, but freedom was proving to be messier than tyranny. Chen had expected this. Tekmon had once told her that true freedom was not the absence of law, but the presence of justice. Building that justice would take time and patience. Humanity had emerged from the war as the strongest single power in the galaxy, but they were still vastly outnumbered by all the other species combined. They could not rule by force as the Council had done. They needed something different. They needed to build trust. "Admiral," called Commander Jackson as he approached through the garden. "The delegates from the Ralthan Republic are here for the signing ceremony." Chen nodded. Today marked another step in building the new galactic order. The Ralthans had been one of the first species to join humanity's coalition after the war. Their rebellion had been so successful that they had liberated 3 star systems from Council control. The signing ceremony took place in the main conference room of Kepler's Honor Reborn. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to formalize what historians would later call the Allied Systems Compact. Unlike the Council's rule by fear, the compact was based on mutual cooperation and respect. Each member species maintained control of their own worlds and fleets, but they agreed to share resources and coordinate defense against common threats. Kliktar, now president of the Ralthan Republic, approached Chen with the formal document. His armored shell bore the scars of many battles, but his compound eyes were bright with hope. "Admiral Chen," he said in his clicking voice, "the Ralthan people are honored to join this alliance. We pledge our ships and our lives to the defense of freedom." Similar pledges came from other species. The plant-like Methani offered to share their agricultural technology to help feed refugee populations. The crystalline Jorvak provided their technical expertise to rebuild war-damaged infrastructure. Even some former Council species, freed from the tyranny of their own governments, asked to join the new alliance. But not everyone was happy with the new order. Deep in the Outer Rim, former Council Admiral Krexmoth was building a new fleet. He was one of the few high-ranking Council officers to escape the Purge, and he blamed humanity for destroying what he saw as galactic civilization. "The humans have doomed us all," he told his followers. "Without proper authority, the young species will destroy themselves and drag the galaxy down with them. We must restore order." Krexmoth's Neo-Council movement attracted desperate beings from across the galaxy, former Council loyalists, criminal organizations, and species that preferred the predictability of oppression to the uncertainty of freedom. They began raiding independent worlds and attacking supply convoys, trying to prove that the new order could not protect its people. This was exactly what Chen had been expecting. She knew that destroying the Council would not eliminate the desire for authoritarian control. Some beings simply could not accept a galaxy where power was shared rather than concentrated. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "We have pirates to catch." The campaign against the Neo-Council was different from the war against the original Council. This was not a single massive enemy that could be defeated in one decisive battle. Instead, it was 1,000 small conflicts across hundreds of worlds. The Terran Navy had to adapt to this new kind of warfare. Instead of massive fleet actions, they fought small unit engagements. Instead of occupying enemy worlds, they liberated enslaved populations and helped them build their own defenses. Captain Maria Santos of the TNS Valorant's Legacy led a typical mission against a Neo-Council raiding base on the asteroid Omega-7. Intelligence reports indicated that Krexmoth's forces were using the asteroid as a staging area for attacks on civilian ships. "Remember," Santos told her crew, "we're not here to conquer. We're here to free the prisoners and destroy the raiding infrastructure. Once that's done, we leave. The local species will handle their own security." The assault was swift and efficient. Human Marines, trained in Valorant close combat techniques, stormed the asteroid base and overwhelmed its defenses. They freed over 1,000 slaves from a dozen different species and captured a significant amount of stolen cargo. But more importantly, they left behind trained local militia and communication equipment that would let the asteroid's inhabitants call for help if the raiders returned. This became the standard pattern throughout the galaxy. The Allied Systems Navy would respond to threats, but they would not stay to govern. Local species were encouraged to build their own defenses and make their own decisions. It was messy, and sometimes inefficient, but it was honest. Unlike the Council, Humanity did not claim to know what was best for every species in the galaxy. As the years passed, the new order gradually stabilized. Trade resumed as merchant ships gained confidence in the Allied system's protection. New colonies were established on worlds that had been forbidden under Council rule. Young species began exploring space and making contact with each other, forming relationships based on common interests rather than Council-imposed hierarchy. Most importantly, the galaxy began to heal from 3,000 years of authoritarian rule. Chen often found herself thinking about what Thekmon would have made of the new galaxy. The Valorants had valued honor above all else, and she believed they would approve of humanity's efforts to build something just and fair from the ashes of tyranny. The memorial garden aboard Kepler's Honor Reborn became a pilgrimage site for beings from across the galaxy. They came to pay their respects to the Valorants whose sacrifice had made freedom possible. Humans and aliens stood together before the holographic statues, sharing stories and remembering the price that had been paid for liberty. "Admiral," Commander Jackson said one day as they watched a group of young Jorvac children learning about Valorant history, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if the Council had never attacked Kepler's Honor?" Chen considered the question. The alliance between humans and Valorants was growing stronger every year. Maybe we would have eventually challenged the Council anyway. Maybe other species would have joined us. Maybe change would have come peacefully. And if not, then the galaxy would still be living under tyranny, Chen replied. The Valorants died for freedom, even if they didn't know it at the time. Their sacrifice was not wasted. As she spoke, Chen's communication device chimed with an urgent message, another distress call, another species under attack by pirates or tyrants or criminals who thought might made right. "Signal the fleet," Chen ordered, just as she had done countless times before. "Plot a course for the Antares system. Someone needs help." This was humanity's new role in the galaxy, not as rulers or conquerors, but as protectors of those who could not protect themselves. They carried the memory of their Valorant friends into every battle, fighting not for empire or glory, but for the simple principle that all species deserved the chance to live free. The Galactic Council had ruled through fear and oppression for 3 millennia. The Allied systems would protect freedom for however long it took. And in the memorial garden of Kepler's Honor Reborn, the holographic statues of Valorant warriors stood eternal watch over the galaxy they had died to liberate. Their honor lived on in every human who carried their memory to the stars, ensuring that their sacrifice would never be forgotten and their dream of freedom would never die.